My names are Architect Alex Gashanjanyaga, the Honorary Registrar of the Association. So today we are here gathered to discuss the impact of COVID-19 on the education system. And what I would like to start by, first of all, welcoming all of you into the session. I hope I'm clear.
Yes, you are. Please continue.
Okay. So in my opening statement, what I would like to say is that the COVID-19 pandemic has impacted our lives in a major way that we never ever thought about. More so, it has affected the education system worldwide, leading to the near total closure of all the schools, universities, colleges, and all the way from the kindergarten, basically. And we can say as from last week, approximately 1.7 billion learners, students are currently affected due to the closure of the schools in response to the pandemic. And according to the current data, 186 countries are currently implementing nationwide closures and 8 are implementing total lockdown, impacting about 98.5% of the world's student population. The severe short-term disruption is felt by many families around the world. Homeschooling is not really a massive shock, is not only a massive shock to parents' productivity, but also to children's social life and learning. Teaching is moving online on in a visually untested scale. Students' assessment and assignments are also moving online with a lot of trial and error, basically, uncertainty, and for everyone. The local school closures has impacted not only the students, teachers, lecturers, families, but have far-reaching economic and society's consequences. And some of these consequences, I can list them to be probably student debt, which basically are from school fees or otherwise, digital learning challenges, food insecurity for students who mostly get fed in schools, homelessness, and access to child care for parents who depend on daycares. There are challenges of student healthcare also, housing challenges, internet connectivity, and disability services, basically for students some of them who live with disability. And most of these impacts are more severe for disadvantaged children and their families, causing an interruption in learning, compromised nutrition, childcare problems, and consequent economic costs to families who could not work. So here we are joined by students of architecture within the East African. We have participants from Kenya, Uganda, and I think Tanzania, if I'm not wrong. We have the student leaders, and I want to welcome all the participants to this session. Let us hear what challenges that our panelists have in dealing with this pandemic, basically during this period, that some of them are in quarantine, others are in lockdown. So welcome all of you. Karibuni sana.
All right, so thank you so much, Registrar, for the introduction. My name is Brenda Nyawara. I'm your host for today. I'm a graduate architect at Ascan Architects and member of the Architects Chapter Council. I'm also a board member for the Women in Real Estate Society of Kenya. So first of all, I'd like to thank the association, the leadership under President Mugure Jendu and the Secretariat for hosting this and many other resourceful webinars during this pandemic. I'm happy to see everyone who has tuned in today. We have 113 participants today. This would not be possible without you. So for today's topic, impact of COVID-19 on learning spaces and opportunities for young women, for young architects in post-COVID-19 world. I'd like to, first of all, just introduce my panelists before we go into the topic. But before I do that, I'd like to acknowledge that we have some of the most brilliant minds here who have showcased excellence in leadership, in student leadership. So one of their most commendable efforts is their steps towards creating an East African Architectural Students Association. This is something that can yield great architecture for our region in future, lead to efficient collaborations and better cross-border practice. We celebrate the greatness of this effort. So on to the introductions. I have 3 countries represented here today, Kenya, Uganda, and Rwanda. So the first panelist, Norbert Amuhuza, president of ASA Uganda from Makerere University in Uganda. He's a final year student of architecture. He served as internal coordinator, vice president, and president of ASA Uganda, as well as the student representative of ASA Society of Architects. He also served as a member of the USA Board of Education for 2 years, and he's a member of the USA media team. Welcome, Norbert. Our second panelist, Oscan, president of ASA Technical University of Kenya. He's the first and current president of ASA TUM, launched in Feb 2020. He's a 4th-year Bachelor of Architecture Studies student, and he worked at A&D Design Architects and Interior Designers, Mombasa, as an intern. Welcome, Oscar, very welcome. Our third panelist is Karigirwa Afsana, president of ASA, University of Rwanda. Karigirwa is a 4th-year student of architecture. She's the co-founder and vice president of Rwandan Ladies in Architecture, which is an association aimed at creating architectural awareness in young women and promoting self-confidence and professionalism in the architecture field. Karigirwa's goal is, as a future female architect, is to take part in the development of architecture in Africa, mainly through women. Welcome, Karigirwa. So our 4th panelist is Elizabeth Njeri, president of ASA Jomo Kenyatta University of Agriculture and Technology. She's also our co-host for today in case we have blackouts or loss of internet. Njeri is a 5th-year student of architecture. She was awarded an honorable mention in the Berkeley International Essay Awards 2020 and currently interns at Cubes and Beyond. Welcome, Njeri. Our 5th panelist is Charlene Chelangat, architecture students rep from Nairobi Institute of Technology. She's a hardworking and motivated architecture student. She excels at working with others with an aim to achieve an objective. Welcome, Charlene. So our 6th panelist, we still have 2 more, is Victor Mutero, president of ASA University of Nairobi. Victor is also my 4th successor. I was president of ASA University of Nairobi for the academic year 2015-2016. So I'm very proud to see the mantle is still being carried on. Victor is a 5th-year student of architecture. He's a current participant in a collaborative design project with the Technical University of Dresden in Germany. Our 7th panelist is Gregory Kipruto, vice president of ASA Kenyatta University, Kenya. He's a 3rd-year student of architecture and also student leader at KUSA, Kenyatta University Students Association. Welcome, Gregory. So our last panelist, the 8th one, Brian Boyd, president of ASA Technical University of Kenya. He's a student of architecture currently in his 5th year of study. He's a chair and one of the founding members of TUK ASA. His passion is BIM, and he hosted a 3-day seminar on BIM in his institution last year. Welcome, welcome everyone. So just to save on time, I'd like to present the questions to the panelists. And after this, we shall have questions from the audience in the chats, which they shall answer, and then they shall also give their closing remarks. So I'll go to the first question directed to Victor Mutero, president of ASA University of Nairobi, Kenya. Schools everywhere have closed due to the pandemic. Some have resumed learning online. So as architecture students, how effective is this new methodology of learning? Do you have adequate skills and technology to learn remotely? Over to you, Victor.
Thank you, Brenda. And let me take this opportunity to first and foremost thank the AAK and its leadership for choosing to involve us as students in this discussion. I am greatly honored to have received the invitation to be part of this webinar. Now, with regards to the effectiveness of online learning, let me begin by saying that despite all practical preparations that may be taken through online learning platforms, one of the biggest challenges for us as students of architecture is the lack of a physical studio environment. Because through the lack of interaction and physical presence, it is largely undeniable that we may tend to lose some of our drive when it comes to working. And in fact, in a recent survey conducted by ArcDaily amongst architects and student architects, which I was very fortunate to be a part of, it emerged that one of the main challenges of having to work from home is the inability to connect with colleagues for informal conversations. This is the banter and chit chat that we have with colleagues and fellow students. They say that it was very essential to our productivity. And this just goes to show how social we are as human beings. With that said, the fact that we are currently in an unprecedented situation means that we have to find ways and means of adjusting by implementing e-learning strategies, which I feel, although may not be 100% effective, will still be able to get some work done. Moving on to the second part of your questions, as for the skills and technology required, I'll briefly elaborate on the situation at the University of Nairobi, which is what I am privy to. So the University of Nairobi has responded to this current crisis by tapping into its existing investment in the ODEL campus. So the ODEL campus stands for Open, Distance, and E-Learning Campus. And it was launched in 2017. And it is anchored by a structure that gives it the mandate to sensitize and build capacity for online learning. And during this period, teaching staff have been trained to write study materials and produce videos for their lectures, which are available in the learning management system, and students have been enrolled also. So far, the university says that over 10,000 students spread in over 25 programs have been going on with the learning, supported by over 400 tutors across the country. I think it is noteworthy that the rolling out of this initiative has not gone unimpeded. And challenges such as students living in areas that lack internet connection and perhaps even lacking electricity being the foremost challenges. And the university is currently trying to tackle this issue through asynchronous learning tools such as Google Classroom. Now, just to distinguish between synchronous and asynchronous interactions, synchronous interaction is what we're doing here right now, where we're able to communicate with each other in real time via Zoom. Whereas asynchronous interactions, we do not have to be there at the same time, which means that lecturers can post assignments or instructions at a certain time of day, and students are able to access them at any time that is convenient to them. And I think this is a very considerate move on their part. And so in conclusion, I think it is clear that we have not found definitive answers to this problem, but trying to adapt and transition using this technology available is key. Thank you, Brenda.
Thank you so much, Victor, and for also bringing up the new terms, synchronous and asynchronous interaction, which is quite important when it comes to learning, because you've mentioned that there's the issue of inability to connect and interact between colleagues, which is very crucial in architecture studio. So because of this, I'll ask Brian Boyd, president of ASA, Technical University of Kenya, are you able to maintain productivity while learning remotely? And how are you able to do so? Did the physical space of studio have any impact on the outcome of your projects? And right now, the absence of that space, does it have any impact on how you're carrying out your studies?
Thank you, Brenda, for those questions. First of all, thank you for having us on this webinar. It's quite cold in Wazingishu, where I'm joining you from. So this is actually warming things up.
That's good.
When it comes to questions, there are actually three parts. First of all, are we maintaining productivity? And the second question builds on it. I think the first one greatly influenced the second. I think largely many people are affected by this. When I was invited to be part of this webinar, I decided to involve my schoolmates. So I actually did a Google form and asked people how they're coping up. And most people are not really coping up well. As Corona is going on, we realize that there are more than just one tragedy facing the country at the moment. Currently, around 28 counties are experiencing flooding, and we must be honest that some of our members are coming from these places experiencing this. A build up on the flooding issues, there is the case of food security, and now the question becomes, what is our priority? Will people at home be focused on learning or food security? And that brings me to the third thing, that is the psychological environment in which we are in. There is a lot of emotional emotional and psychological anxiety. We don't really know when we are coming back to school, at home for the rest of the year. Will we be coming back very soon? And then again, we realized that this was an emergency. Most people don't know it will come. So some of those who travel up country did not really prepare themselves for a long period of study. That brings me to my fifth, which is lack of materials and resources. At this moment, model making and anything physical in architecture is largely dead. The only thing we actually have to do architecture at the moment is our computers. So it becomes very difficult to continue with studio learning when that is the only thing you have. And then there's also what Victor has mentioned, there's lack of infrastructure. In very many places, you find that there is no network coverage, or it's weak, there's no electricity, and all this infrastructure that it's supposed to support online learning. So that makes learning actually quite difficult. And then there's also the lack of the studio culture and the motivation that comes along with it. Physical contact and that chat and banter, as Victor put it, between students actually help people to develop their creativity and get the morale to continue studying. So many people are actually finding it difficult to continue learning on their own. And then there's also the issue of people are actually trying to look for money at the moment. There's people who have personal projects ongoing. There are those who spend the day farming or babysitting, and these are necessary duties they must do at home. I mean, when you're in school, the parents pay your fees. When you're at home, you're supposed to help them look for those school fees. So largely, our learning has been affected. And but then, despite this, in every rainy cloud, there's a silver lining. So some people are trying to maintain productivity. One is, as I've said, some people are having actually personal projects, having a site experience, field experience on architecture, which is a plus. It's an out-of-class learning. There's also people who are having online tutorials and learning architecture from other platforms. There are also those who are reading the theoretical units or architectural literature, which we sometimes skip over when we're doing our studio design. There are also those who, on their personal initiative, are having discussions, which I must admit are not very many students. I think people are actually concerned about many other things at the moment. So those are some of the ways people are trying to maintain productivity in matters architecture. There's also competitions. I'm actually part of a restaurant design competition ongoing at the moment. So that's one of people maintaining productivity within architecture, but that's a small population. The majority of the population are maintaining productivity outside architecture. There are those who are pursuing their hobbies, music, art, cooking, teaching, preaching, and all these other things beyond the studio space, which I think is still productivity, because productivity is beyond pencil on paper. It's also about your own life. There are also those who are learning other skills. I have one of my schoolmates who is learning coding and is actually at the moment doing software specific, websites specifically for architectural firms. So people are learning also other skills beyond architecture. These are some of the ways in which people are trying to maintain their productivity in matters architecture. Back to you, Brenda.
Thank you so much, Brian, for the comprehensive answer. I'd like to recognize the fact that you actually did a Google survey. There's an echo. So thank you so much, Brian, for actually doing a Google survey to get feedback from every one of your classmates and to give us a comprehensive answer. I highly recommend this. So I'll go on to Gregory Kipruto, Vice President of ASA, Kenyatta University, Kenya. In your opinion, what steps should be taken to ensure training of architecture students remains adequate and productive, even while learning remotely?
Okay, thank you very much, Brenda and AAK in general. I think I really appreciate the inclusivity of students, especially in such forums, which you can we can air out our views to everyone and also to the public in general. I think the first thing we should notice as students is that we should always try to be resilient, in that whenever we have any challenge, we should try to get back to our feet and still continue, because after all, we still have a lot to cover, and especially graduation still looming. So we have to work as if like there is no pandemic. in it. So I think when we are at home or wherever we are, because it's an impromptu holiday, we can try to take it as an attachment, as an unofficial attachment, and this will also help us at least develop our own skills, the handy skills, rather than just theoretical work at school. And this we can also try by visiting sites just around home. And when I mean site, doesn't mean to be that formal site whereby you have a 3 to 4 story building. Even just even if it's a small homestead being constructed just right next to your door, try to be there and also see what is happening. And also I'll try to advocate most students to try the DIY, that is do it yourself, or the DIY, do it yourself. Architecture is just more about beauty and enhancing of a space. So the moment you hear there is something being constructed, even if it's a chicken house or even if it's a dog house, that's still part of architecture, and you need to design for that life, which is an animal, because after all, we are still animals in terms of mammals. And I think we should always try as students to work our way bottom up. Don't try to start being that renowned person before sweeping the floor. Let me just say that to help us at least develop, nurture your talents, and try to understand those people at the bottom, what they go through, such that when you're designing also, you have that in mind, and so that you have a workable and a feasible design at the end of the day. And when also we are at home, let's try to work online. I think this is a thing that is being advocated all around the globe. We are not that privileged at Kenyatta University like UON, whereby they have their online classes frequently, especially for studio also, where you can submit your work online. We're still working on a lot. And I think it's a thing that all universities should move to, such that we have our own theory work and also studio, but we can still do it online, in terms of, instead of having 45 hours of a unit sitting just down in class, let's try to have let's say 30 hours that is physical in class interactive session, but 15 hours to also help us at least have a studio culture, whereby you can, yes, be in studio, but you're still learning your own, maybe another unit that was being taught later on, like maybe history or maybe one of the social sciences. And I think this will really help us. And I think most of us will agree if I say we've learned more through Google and YouTube, as they say, Uncle YouTube and Uncle Google, anti YouTube. We've learned a lot, especially through tutorials, as Brian had said, and this is really helping us in the end, and that is maybe in the practice field. And the other thing is also, let's try to focus and sharpen our skills on CAD aided design, and this will really be a step ahead, because I think with the future, whatever the future of architecture holds, is drifted mainly to technology. So if you still drag your legs behind through the drafting aids, especially which you did in first year, second year frequently, I think you'll be out of business. So we should try to be that resilient and look for new ways. And especially with this pandemic, which has taught us a lot, let's try to sharpen our skills, especially on CAD, be marketable, not just because it's CAD, just do the basic CAD. No, try to do that, what you cannot do even with a pencil, with CAD also. And I think this will also help us. And I think also in future, what I'll try to recommend, especially in most universities, to also try to balance the weight. You know, with the technical field, it's really hard for us to have the online forums. We're not like that business economic, they're so privileged they can continue their classes right now. But for us, let's try to have a situation whereby even if we are still at home, or no matter what happens, we can still do our studio work. And you know, the studio work includes the technical drafting stuff and also construction of stuff. So if we cannot construct even with Forex board at home and something like that, what other ways can we do to solve that one? And I think this will be open up for discussion later on. But for now, let's just try to work on sharpening our skills, and let's take it as an informal attachment, especially for students, that will really help us, such that once we are back, we don't say we were two months quarantine, but rather I was at 2 months attachment. And I think that will really help us. Yeah, thank you. Back to you.
Okay, thank you so much, Gregory, for also bringing up the fact that we should work as if there's no pandemic. And I like how you mentioned that there are resources, online tutorials on YouTube and Google, and how we should use this time to focus and sharpen our skills. And I'd like to bring your attention to one of the comments made by architect Dom Cox in the comment section. He has recommended some books for students to go and check out during this time. It's time for you to train yourself, to build up your skills, to use up the time to come up, to be a better student and architect in the making. So thank you so much, Architect Dom Cox. So I'd like to go on to the next question, directed to Norbert Amuhuza, President of ASA Uganda from Makerere University. So design is a discussion. And given how architecture students have developed a studio culture where they worked collectively, how has learning remotely affected this workflow? And are you still able to hold discussions on concepts, give each other feedback, have critics, and be able to discuss ideas with your students, with your fellow students?
Thank you very much, fellow panelists, AAK. I'm glad to be part of this. Going to the first question, giving a highlight of what is happening right here in Uganda, we have an issue of a total lockdown, not just quarantine. So we've had an issue of all institutions closed, and there was a directive that online presentation or online assessment cannot go on, so everything is on hold. So right now, the ball is in our courts, and we've had an interaction with a number of students and lecturers. So the issue right now and how we are operating is, if you have, there are some certain lecturers that are a bit more proactive, that are a bit more involved in the students' lives, that they actually push on regardless of the government directives, not breaching, but actually getting to help these students proceed. Yes, we've been greatly affected in terms of workflow. We miss the working hours, we miss the interactions in studio, we miss the crits. Right now, it's difficult to go on throughout the whole project, judging your work by yourself. There's this interaction in studio where a colleague actually comes to your desk and they're like, oh, how is this working? Things that you couldn't see yourself. It's being a discussion, and the fellow students actually help us to see projects, to see design in other people's eyes, and where we can't interact with clients directly. You find fellow students actually bring out certain issues of design to you, and then you can actually discuss how you can deal with that. We do not have that. So we are still struggling, though a few students are actually getting used to online crits. We are just adopting the culture. Recently, I had a crit with one of the panelists, Njeri, and this lockdown has actually helped us understand that we can actually work with students outside, with students across universities, students across the borders. And I'd like to encourage most of the students, almost everyone, to actually adopt that culture. And yeah, some of our colleagues right now, a few that I've talked to, other students, they are trying to get used to that culture, but I must admit that it's difficult. But we are trying to get used. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Norbert, for being honest about the difficulty of the missing interaction in studio. And I would like to comment how you have already made a step towards giving each other crits, all the way from Uganda, getting credit from Jerry in Kenya. That's a good step. And I would like to encourage all students who are online right now, take advantage of these online resources to be able to interact with anyone else in any other architecture school around the world. It's very possible. and nothing can stop you now. This is a good example from Norbert from Makerere University with Jerry from JKUAT Kenya. That's very commendable. So I'd like to go on to the next question. Osangari, President of ASA Technical University of Mombasa, Kenya. Design is a solution. And so in architecture schools, we're often taught to gear our projects towards solving a certain issue or item in society. So now that we have a pandemic that's affecting how we're using our public spaces, has it shifted how you approach design of public spaces? For example, design of restaurants, design of schools, supermarkets, how we are using them right now is very different from before. So has it affected how you look at design of public spaces?
Thank you, Brenda, for hosting us. I hope I'm clear. Yes, it has affected. As you know, many architectural innovations have evolved as a result of problems, and as architects, majorly we're just problem solvers. We muddle through and try to see how we can solve a number of problems in the industry. So yes, there's a number of options. We can learn from history. For instance, the swine flu that happened in
All right, we seem to have lost Oscar. I will come back to his question, but before we go on, I'd like to give emphasis on how he mentioned that architecture has evolved as a result of trying to solve problems, and he was going on into the issue of swine flu. We've had Ebola also before, and how design could have the ability to prevent future outbreaks. And so we'll wait for him to come back so he can give us his comprehensive answer. So I'd like to just go on to Karigirwa Afsana, President of ASA, University of Rwanda.
Hello.
In your opinion, do you think we have access to online resources to facilitate virtual learning? Do you think you have adequate tools to further this learning process even when you are working remotely? And is there a gap? Do students feel like they are well catered for?
Okay, thank you, Brenda. Thank you, AAK, for this opportunity. So for our case in Rwanda, I cannot say that the virtual learning has been a success so far, a way of formal learning, resuming schools. But like from the start of the lockdown in March, our university, together with the government and other educational institutions, they've tried their ways to tackle the problem of e-learning by, but the challenge of students that went back into their homes in the countryside has been very critical, because some students don't have easy access to internet and to electricity as well. And in addition to that, as the lockdown went on, for some students, the needs or the focus shifted due to the different challenges that the pandemic put them to. So the university instead started uploading some tools, I mean handouts and some videos online for those students who can access internet to stay in line with courses, but not as a way of resuming formal classes. And in addition to the government's efforts and the university's efforts, some telecom companies helped in facilitating students to access e-learning platforms for free, but still that benefited those students that have access to internet. So for that, all the students that have access, they were required to enroll to those e-learning platforms so they could keep them busy and learning as well. And later, in accordance with the latest announcement that the government published, confirming that all formal classes will resume in September, we as the Association of Students, we saw that as an opportunity to bring help by trying to plan different activities to ensure learning for the students, architectural students. by keeping them active and in line with both architectural skills that we normally receive at school, but also those additional day-to-day skills that we don't have on our curriculums. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Karigira. I like how you mentioned that students should still stay in line with their courses and take advantage of the fact that telecom companies in Rwanda are allowing students to access e-learning portals for free, so long as they have internet access. So that's a very commendable thing. The fact that learning has been pushed all the way to September in schools physically is alarming, but then this gives students an opportunity to know that they have a certain number of months to put together what they're learning in the meantime and to just be productive in the meantime. So I'd like to go back to Oscan Gary. If you are able to give us an answer of how the pandemic has affected your design approach to public spaces as a student. Oscar?
My internet was interrupting. I was talking about how we can learn from history, specifically from the swine flu, which was the most recent that happened in 2009. A number of innovations were embraced, not specifically here locally, but in some first world countries, such as the adoption of sanitary transfer windows in hotels and restaurants where there is minimal interaction between people. Of course, we have a number of options. Some I got from WhatsApp, from an article in WhatsApp. Of course, there's what we can all think of, which is having wider corridors and more open spaces for maintaining social distancing, and also having large openable windows for proper ventilation. A number of more options that we can adopt is have more sanitation stations outside washrooms, or rather even improve the existing ones, because some of these washing facilities that we have in a number of public spaces are in not very good conditions. They're possibly even miserable. So we can improve them. We can even go to ensure that we have some hand-free sensor technology for doors and light switches and storage units. Reduce the number of flat surfaces in the public domains, as they're being suggested to be breeding grounds for diseases, for viruses and germs. Well, it's not so clear, of course. The research is going on. A number of these solutions are subject to issues of cost of purchase and maintenance, because if you go telling a client something like to have a hand-free sensor technology for their doors, they might look at you like you're a joke. Well, that might not be the case. So it is achievable if only they understand what you're trying to say. Yeah, and we can also have morale boosting signage, on walls or even walkways to improve people's moods, because a large part of what has been affected is people's morale, because of course there's fear. People don't know how susceptible they are to this disease. So yeah, there are a number of options that we can approach in design. Design has always been driven by problem solving, specifically for architecture design. So yes, thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Oscar, for already alluding into how design can possibly adapt into responding to this pandemic. And also these suggestions, of course, will be subject to research and experimentation to see if they can help us to adapt to our new normal. Thank you so much. So I'd like to go on to Elizabeth Njeri, President of ASA, Jomo Kenyatta University of Agriculture and Technology, Kenya. So since students of architecture are, again, trained with problem-solving abilities, has the Students Association leaders, have they put up any efforts towards ensuring the well-being of their members as they continue learning during this time? How are your members faring on? What is the ASA for JKUAT doing? Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Brenda and AK for hosting us in this student webinar and for giving us the chance to share our views on the impact of COVID on students. So I shall be very honest to say that we are not really prepared for this pandemic. We are caught unaware with zero previous knowledge on how to deal with it on a personal level, on a class level, and even at a school level at large. So that notwithstanding, our studio, my 5th year studio, earlier on, I think 2-3 years ago, created 2 separate class groups, one for ladies, one for gents. And in these class groups, we were able to talk about more intimate issues, and you can air your successes, your grievances, and we try to support each other, be it someone's hobby, someone's YouTube channel, those small things that actually make life matter. So in this group, we are willing to support anyone emotionally, psychologically, if in the event that, God forbid, any of them gets COVID or a family member, so that they know that we are with them and we shall not be stigmatizing them. So on the second part of continuous learning, still in my 5th year studio, we submitted recently our research proposals and we await feedback from the unit tutor. We were also able to submit a cut from yet another unit tutor. And I am also aware that in JKUAT, the 3rd year, 4th year, and I think 6th year have been having studio crits on Zoom. And in as much as all these efforts are being put forward by the school, we are also encouraging a personal level of commitment to learning. As Norbert said, inter-class, inter-university, studio learning from Zoom and maybe Facebook are very encouraged, because if you pioneer them, then they become more personal and interactive. And it is in these brutal and personal crits that the motivation comes. And alluding to what Victor said in terms of the banter and the fun and just the happiness in being in studio with your colleagues is exactly what we need. And the informality also of these crits between students allows you to get motivation from one another. You look at someone's work and you're inspired by their workflow, their thought process, and that. So definitely this should be encouraged. And as you said, across all students, be it in Kenya, Uganda, Rwanda, even Tanzania, all of us. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Elizabeth. I'm very happy to hear that you have classrooms separate for male and female students for ensuring the well-being of the students and also making sure they're sharing motivation and keeping up with productivity. That's very commendable. I'd like to go to Charlene Chelangat, our last panelist for today. She is president of ASA. She's a representative of ASA, Nairobi Institute of Technology in Kenya. So my question would be, since the pandemic has caused an economic recession worldwide, given that you're supposed to graduate in a few months or in a year or so, do you have any plans to ensure you successfully join the market, or are there any fears of non-absorption to the markets?
Thank you, Brenda, for this opportunity, and thank you, AAK, for giving our students a chance to voice out our views on this on the pandemic. To answer the first part of the question, young adults will face some issues as of right now, especially those who are supposed to graduate in a year or so, considering the fact that they'll have a few worries about putting together a resume, building a profile online, networking with some alumni, or preparing some elevator pitches on how they're going to find any jobs in the workforce. For young adults especially, this would be another level of concern due to the rising fear of the COVID-19 as of right now, the COVID-19, sorry. But such situations can be evaded through a few changes in their game plans through some interviews. As since right now we're falling mainly towards the video and phone interviews and majorly on the online community. With phone interviews, you won't be able to see your interviewer or the office, and you'll miss out on the social cues, which will tell you if they liked or disliked how you answered a question without seeing the office, and you won't gain a feel of the environment or the people, the culture, the place. You'll lose the sports memorabilia and how you could be a team with the person. It would, like, that would be a major icebreaker as of now. Recent graduates may not feel as comfortable on the phone as some Gen Xers, and they're encouraged to practice some phone mock interviews, which will be like a benefit, as they can write some notes and keep them in front of themselves while they're talking to the person and note what they're going to be talking about, keeping them focused on a specific topic, and it will offer training wheels as an assurance. As for video interviews, they offer a close resemblance to an in-person meeting. Some of you may have conducted some FaceTimes or some Skypes, which enable you to be more comfortable with this mode of interaction, such as right now, the Zoom. You interact easily, and it may be easy to fall back into an informal tone, which if you get too much used to the person or too used to the note of the way you're going to be talking to the person. So it will also keep you on your toes, and you have to remember that it's an interview, and the person you're talking to will maybe the person, your boss, or someone who's going to be ahead of you, and you have to keep it professional so as to reduce the interpersonal gap of interactions, which may last a while. And another way to reduce this kind of interpersonal interaction gap will be building a profile online, such as a LinkedIn profile, so as to connect with the companies in which you want to work in, or social media, like, you'll target the hiring managers or other relevant people. You can also extract from family or friends or a group of advisors who can help you get your foot on the door. And you can also maybe set up a blog or a website to showcase who you are, what makes you special, or why a certain company should hire you, and how you can help the company, or your gifts and everything. And the second part of the question, yes, some few young adults or some few graduates will face some few cases of non-absorption, such as they might feel inadequate, or they'll feel like, especially when they feel that they don't think their result is good enough, or it's taking a while for them to get a job. It will be like, right now it might be difficult for them to get a job, as the companies are majorly focusing on their employees and the people they're servicing, and they're majorly focusing on themselves. So interviews may be a little bit clunky here and there, but they'll have to bear with it and kind of have to focus on themselves and find other methods of revenue, other methods of keeping themselves busy, like, as it has been said, nurturing their abilities, or they can work on other activities to keep themselves busy, improve their things they can put in their curriculums or anything else. And they just have to know that they will get through this tough time. It will be hard at first, but down the road we'll be proud about the fortitude we push forward in the face of adversity, and will prevail all obstacles which will be in our paths for now. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Charlene, for your response. I'd like to make an announcement. I think, first of all, the students, the audience, please make sure you can ask your questions via the Q&A box. We are heading on there right now. And then you can also raise up your hand to ask your questions. So I'd like to just recognize a few comments in the comment section. One from Noel Okello, architect Noel Okello, talking about how students should take advantage of social media to get crits from other experienced architects. For example, the Kenya Architects Pinup Board group on Facebook, it's very active, it's very responsive. So take advantage of such access that you have. And also Dom Cox mentioned that AAK launched a mentorship program that will allow young architects to link to other experienced architects or take advantage of these opportunities. And so I'd like to go to the first question, again asked by Dom Cox, asking if university fees should be reduced during lockdown. I think this should be directed to the institutions rather than the students. So the next question is Njue Munene Babu asking Gregory Kipruto, how will online learning solve studio design critics, and how will you be able to carry out case studies?
Okay, once again, I think you've already talked about something to deal with the online crits, especially the architects, as in the Kenya Architects Pinup Board on Facebook, which is, yes, it's operating, but there isn't any posts frequently, especially from students. And the stuff dealing with online is the efficiency that you get from that place is really, it's better than even the classwork that you get, the crits that you, I mean, like all the crits that you do, especially in school. So with the online during this pandemic where we have to social distance and quarantine and self-quarantine from time to time, I think online is the best way to especially air out our views. And this you can reach a lot of people in a short span of time, and that will ensure a better quality of your work once we resume our classes. And I think the availability of better architects, it's online rather than just in our school where we are limited to a specific number of tutors, but online you can get a vast majority. Let's not shun the crits that will get, especially if it's negative or positive. Negative will build us a lot. So I guess online is the way to go, and please just try to reach as many people as you can through the online crits. Back to you.
All right, thank you so much, Thank you so much, Kipruto. So audience, kindly remember we're still expecting more questions via the Q&A box. So on to the next question, again from Dom Cox, asking, do you think the office block building type will fade away? Talking about the office rents in town centers, are we going to all go virtual even after the pandemic? And so I'd like to direct this question to Brian Boyd. If you can give us your response. Do you think the office building setup will fade away now that we are working and studying remotely?
No, I do not think so. There's one thing about being human, that face-to-face learning can never be substituted. The chat and banter, the conversations, the interactions beyond simply architecture is key in the development of the artistic mind. So I don't think it will be. However, I think that post this pandemic, one thing that will really increase is probably blended learning, where we take advantage of the asynchronous tools such as Canva, Blackboard, and the other synchronous tools like Zoom. But we'll only take this and layer them into the face-to-face sort of learning. We'll soon realize that online learning, remote working is not a substitute, but rather a complement of physical learning. I think also probably post-corona, institutions will consider online education as a more strategic priority, but probably this will work better for courses which are not very technical. For the courses which are technical, student-lecturer contact is important, student-student contact is important, and this contact is usually not one-off time of class contact sort of, but it's more of an extended back and forth critiquing process, sharing of ideas and thoughts, and this does not have a program or a schedule. So I don't think online and remote working will substitute physical working and physical learning. However, it will greatly complement, and if we merge it well, it will be a big boost to our education process.
Just a comment from architect Mumboa Musimi saying students should continue to engage their tutors. They are very ready to give feedback and are willing to help even during this situation. So make sure you take advantage of that. I'd like to also go back to the questions. Again, Dom Ox is asking about the online classes at UON. I think it would be good to check the website and consult with the department for the links. Again, Terence is asking about the submission of work online at UON. So as a UON, you have a big chance to make sure you communicate to your students on how they can submit their work online. All right, so the questions are going very fast. Rioba Mara would like to ask about the AAK mentorship program, if it's operational within the COVID-19 consideration. Yes, the AAK mentorship program is an ongoing program, and you can still be able to be linked. You can still be linked with your mentor even now. Just send an email to the AAK email. Before I take any other question from the floor, I would also like the students to give us just a preview of what kind of software they're using to design, package, and assign students, assign and do assignments virtually. I'd like to hear the answer from Victor as we wait for more questions.
Thank you, Brenda. So in regards to the software that is being used to package assignments and package presentations, I think that hasn't changed. It is, the workflow is the same. It's what we've been using back in studio. The only difference being that, you know, we are not pinning up and we are not submitting hard copies, and instead you're submitting soft copies in the very widely used PDF format. So in regard to the software, that hasn't changed much. It is just what we have been using all through. Thank you.
A very crucial question here from Josephine, and she's asking, does ASA, and by this I mean all the ASA bodies represented here, do you have data on how many students currently have access to internet resources and access to continuous learning? Because there seems to be an assumption that all students are connected. As much as the school is supposed to also do this kind of research, is there any ASA that has done this kind of survey? So this question goes on to any ASA leader who has made any such step.
Probably Brenda, on that, I've not really done a survey, though I've tried to contact my classmates. I don't even attempt using an online platform. I used SMS, but the response was quite low, and either because of lack of access or simply because people are not at the moment really concerned with geared towards conversion among concerning matters school. I think the slow response I got from my classmates alone showed me that not many students at the moment are really active online or active on matters architecture.
All right, thank you so much, Brian. At least you made an effort to do the survey. Brian is president of ASA, Technical University of Kenya. That's very commendable. George Arabu is asking, which social media platforms are most students currently using to interact? And are they Facebook, WhatsApp, Instagram, YouTube? So Elizabeth Jerry, could you please answer this?
Pardon, I didn't hear you quite well.
Okay, so the question is from George Arabu, asking which social media platforms are students currently using to interact and carry out educational discussions?
Okay. Personally, I have used Zoom before, but I know of Norbert using Facebook, I think Live with his lecturers. So those are the two main ones. And then of course there's WhatsApp where you can PDF your work and then send to either a tutor or students where you can share. I have not heard yet of someone using Instagram. So I'll narrow it down to Facebook, Zoom, and WhatsApp.
Okay. Okay, thank you so much. So due to the interest of time, I'd like to cut down on the questions. It seems like most of them are now repetitive and they're things that we had discussed before. So this is a live recording and we'll have this webinar published online so you can go back and check out on the answers given by the students. So, okay, one last question. I'd like to give one last question by an anonymous attendee asking if we should invest more on technological learning for virtual learning rather than the physical learning studio. So should schools be geared towards ensuring students can learn remotely instead of trying to build more buildings for studios? Maybe I can direct this to Karigira from Rwanda.
Thank you, Brenda. So with regards to that question, I think it would be nice to invest more in virtual learning, but I don't think it should be more. It should be the most used one more than the physical classes, because as architecture students, we need more of informal interactions with our fellow students, and I think that can't be totally replaced with virtual learning. We should invest more in virtual learning to tackle the problems like these ones that come surprisingly, but it shouldn't be the first option more than physical learning. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. There seems to be more questions coming in, so I do expect more interactions between the students and between the members who are here today. I hope we'll continue this interaction online, in social media, in the Facebook group that had been mentioned before. And so just to cut this seminar now, I'd like to give each panelist a chance to give their parting shots. And so just 1 minute last word from each of the panelists. We'll start with Norbert Hamuhuza, President of ASA Uganda from Makerere University. Norbert.
Okay, thank you very much. I was delighted to be part of this discussion. One or two things that I can say is that as students, we need to be more flexible to be able to adapt to this new normal, considering, say, if the normal doesn't go back to what we actually thought. We need to be more flexible. The ball is now in our courts. It's up to us to grow socially, technically, professionally. It's all up to us. So we need to be able to adapt, to adjust, and be open to this technology thing, and for it to actually be able to help us as we proceed. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Norbert. Over to Oscar Ngari, President of ASA, Technical University of Kenya. Oscar?
Thank you, Brenda. Yes, I hope I'm clear.
Yes, you are.
Mine is to urge everyone, most of my fellow students, to make the most of what they have. It is worthwhile. There's a sense in which adaptability has ensured that we evolve as humans. If you really look at the history of humans, you realize that we survive because we are able to adapt to such situations. And urge you all to remain positive. It's also a lot to do with our health and everything else that we do. So thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, Oscar. Over to Karigirwa Afsana, President of ASA, University of Rwanda.
Thank you again, Brenda.
Give us your final word.
Yeah, so my final word here would be, let's keep being positive and see this as an opportunity more than a challenge. Of course, it's a challenge, but we can benefit from it in a positive way. So like all the architecture students and even other students, let's take this as an opportunity to explore ourselves and explore our fields more and learn those things that we don't have on our curriculums. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Karigirwa. So Elizabeth Njeri, President of ASA, Jomo Kenyatta University of Agriculture and Technology. Elizabeth?
Thank you, Brenda. I just like to tell people that you should just work towards being a little better each day. You don't have to be perfect. We are all caught unaware and none of us were ready for it. You are waiting for it to be a week, 2 weeks. It's now 2 months, maybe it will extend till September, December, no one knows. No one is ready, no one will ever be ready. But I think I will also just give you a quote to motivate students and architects alike, that if you want to lift yourself up, lift up someone else, by Booker T. Washington. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Elizabeth, with the quote from Booker T. Washington. I'd like to ask Charlene Chelangat, President of ASA, ASA representative from the Nairobi Institute of Technology, Kenya. Can you give us your closing remarks?
Excuse me, Brenda, could you repeat? I couldn't hear you.
All right, Charlene, we are just giving our last remarks, a parting shot, 1 minute remark of what you'd like to tell us before we close the seminar.
Thank you, Brenda, and my fellow members. I'd like to tell the people to be like, it's for everyone, to take care of themselves, as right now we're experiencing such tough time, though it came unexpectedly. We have to like try to improve ourselves, not being idle, using the opportunity we have right now, all the online facilities which are available to most of us. We should access them and try to improve ourselves in various ways and keep heart that this will pass and we will go back to our daily lives as it was. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Charlene. So Victor Mutero, President of ASA, University of Nairobi, kindly give us your parting shot.
My word of advice to institutions would be to keep open lines of communication, knowing that this is a very uncertain and anxious time for a lot of people. And so departments should regularly check in with their students, take feedback, and make adjustments to their various solutions to online learning. As for my fellow students, I think my word of advice would be to stay as educated as you can and be as proactive as you can in this period. Thank you.
Vice President of ASA, Kenyatta University, Kenya.
Just to wrap up what I had said initially and everything, let's take this as a blessing in disguise and like have it like this is a relationship. I mean, a relationship. Education is like a relationship. So the moment we are away, that's a like long distance relationship. If we are back together, that's it. So just take it as a long distance relationship. Ensure you still maintain connection with either your students, either that is the lecturers, and also your online materials, that is the PDFs, and also do your research from time to time, so that you come out of this pandemic as a better student architect rather than just a layman. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much, Gregory. Very well put. So the last and final remark, Brian Boyd, President of ASA, Technical University of Kenya, kindly give us your parting shots.
Thank you, Brenda, and thank you the whole of the AAK team for giving us this opportunity. If there's one quote I've really had being brandished a lot this time is never let a good crisis go to waste. This is a time for students to assess their ability to learn on their own and their ability to use their life outside the four walls of the classroom. This is a time also for the schools and institutions to upgrade their facilities, their structures, their leadership and administrative strategies so that they can be more ready for such pandemics, probably, and take advantage of technology and the resources we have. I think as Winston Churchill says, if you're going through hell, keep going.
Okay, thank you so much to our panelists for taking your time to come and give us feedback, to come and give us your own 2 cents, and also doing research to give us well-researched questions and answers also. And I'd like to also comment how you are very much intact with your students, your fellow students, how you're very much aware of resources online and what you can do to further your learning even during this pandemic. And I'm very happy that you guys are still keeping up the productivity, the motivation, the inspiration. Keep it up, and I know it will yield better results. So I'm very happy to close down this seminar, but before I do that, I'll give it over to the registrar for AAK, Alex Nyaga, Architect Alex Nyaga. I have been your host, Brenda Nyawara, past president of ASA, University of Nairobi, 2015-2016. Thank you so much. Over to you, Architect Alex Nyaga.
Thank you so much, Brenda. It's actually been a very good session. Thank you to all our panelists for the good discussion, the insights that you've given us. We've actually had quite an elaborate session with trying to tell us how the challenges that they're experiencing. And we all know that most of these challenges, you can actually turn them into opportunities. An example of like now the internet connectivity issue to some is a challenge, but we are actually seeing that if at all somebody like Brian is connected from Uasin-Gishu, that actually shows that there's no limit actually in the interaction that we have. Then we are supposed to, what we learn from them is that we can also, because during this particular period, we've been told to work like there's no pandemic. This is the time that to keep yourself busy, trying to do something different that you've never done before. Use your hands to build as you've been told, the dog house or the chicken house, start rearing something. The new universities, you can learn something from what Nairobi University is actually doing on the Odell campus. We have some of the lecturers, in our as attendees. We have Noel Okelo, Jerusha Zembi, Olivia Sali, Akshara Buriri. These are some of the things that you can actually try and implement in the various universities that you are actually lecturing, and so that we can try and keep the spirit going. It's a challenge. It is a challenge. The pandemic is a challenge, but we can turn it into an opportunity to also shift our mindset. Because right now, like we've been told, you can start thinking the new challenge of this pandemic that creates a totally different perspective into the way we design, the way we perceive things. It's a new time to start thinking differently from the normal that we've always thought. So we may start having actually a new normal, which about every time washing hands. So as we are currently doing. So thank you so much for everyone. Thank you for all the attendees for being here with us. Appreciate to AAK, and also Brenda, thanks for the session.
All right, thank you so much.